Hello! In this lesson I'm going to show you how to improve and develop your IELTS speaking at home. So many students tell me that they cannot improve their English because they don't have a foreigner to talk to. So I want to show you that it is possible to improve your speaking at home on your own for free. Now, the first thing I want you to do is to get a list of topics. The common topics for Speaking Part 1, Speaking Part 2 and Speaking Part 3. If you cannot find a list, please go to my IELTS blog, www.ieltsliz.com, and you will find a list of common topics, difficult topics, and the questions as well. So you need to get a list of these topics and develop ideas. I don't want you to write down your answers. I want you only to develop the ideas. So, for example, if the topic is the topic of weather, you can develop ideas about the kind of weather you like, what you do when the weather is like that, also how the weather makes you feel, different kinds of weather, or maybe the transportation problems that come because of that weather. So just develop ideas that you can use for that topic. The next thing, number 2, is a word list, so vocabulary. If you have the topic of weather, you need to have a range of vocabulary for that topic. So for example, hot weather. Hot is a very low band score. But you could use boiling, scorching, sweltering. There's a whole range of vocabulary that you can build to impress the examiner for that topic. So you need to get that list of vocabulary and learn it. Number 3, your next step to developing your speaking. Get the topic, weather. Choose probably about, let's say, 6 questions for that topic. Take your telephone and answer the questions, recording your voice. It's very important that you do the recording rather than writing the answer. When you write answers, usually you think more about the grammar, you think more about the vocabulary, and often you make less mistakes. When you speak, it's direct. So when you record your answer, this gives you a chance to find your weaknesses. Finding your weaknesses is very important so that you can improve. So you need to record your answers to those questions on your phone. After that, I want you to listen to your answers. Listen and check. Now, there are 4 things that I want you to check for. I want you to check for fluency, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. This is what the examiner will check you on. Now, each one in the exam is 25% of your marks. So they're all equal, they are all very important. And the examiner is going to check your answer for each one. Now let's have a look at what you need to check for each one. Fluency. What does that mean? Well, the first thing that you need to check is the length of your answer. Did you give a very short answer, or could you develop it a little bit more? When you develop your answer a little bit more, that is a higher band score. You're offering the examiner more language, but you're showing the ability to speak fluently. So develop your answer more, higher band score. Another thing that you can check for your fluency is how many times you say, These are hesitations, and we don't want hesitations in our answer. So you need to check how many that you have. If you have a lot, that's a problem, I'm afraid. And you need to find a way to practice more so that you get rid of the ums and ers. So we've got the length of answer and the ums and ers. Another thing that you can check for fluency is how many times you are silent. Often when students start speaking, they can't remember what they want to say and suddenly they stop. It is not good to stop and be silent in the middle of your answer. You need to fill it. You need to keep speaking naturally with a good flow, and that will give you a good band score. So those are 3 things that you can check in your answer for your fluency. Now the next thing is vocabulary. What do we need to check in the vocabulary for your answer? Well, obviously the first thing is the range. And the range means how many different words are you using. I'll give you an example. So, paraphrasing. Are you repeating the same words again and again, or are you using different words to describe the same thing? So again, we use the example of hot. You could say boiling, scorching, sweltering. Those are 3 different words that we can use for the meaning of hot. So you need to show a good range of vocabulary. That's from your word list. And you need to paraphrase and show the ability to use different words for the same meaning. When you paraphrase well, you are looking at band score 7 and band score 8. Another thing you can look at with the vocabulary, of course, are mistakes. Now, one way that you can check your mistakes is by, when you listen to your answer, listen and write down the words that you say. That way you can check more carefully if you're making any mistakes with words. Are you using the wrong word? Are you using the wrong noun with the verb? What problems do you have? So check that in your answer. Another thing to look at, of course, grammar. And with grammar, you need to check, again, the range. So, for example, the range of tenses. Are you giving only present simple? Now, I know maybe the 6 questions that you have are present simple questions. But that doesn't mean that you can't give another tense. So, for example, what kind of weather do you like? I just love hot weather, scorching weather. Last week it was perfect. So it was a present simple question, but I gave a little bit of past simple in the answer. So you can practice doing that and develop the technique of putting different tenses into your answer. Another thing you can look at is sentence structure. And that means how complex are your sentences. Are you using a lot of short sentences? So don't forget, listen to your answer, write down the words that you're using, and then check how complex the sentences are. You can perhaps start using some linkers and start extending the sentences. And of course, another thing for grammar, again, are mistakes. This is very important. The more mistakes you make, the lower your band score will be. So remember that the examiner is listening for mistakes with vocabulary and grammar. So please check what mistakes you're making and correct them and practice. And of course the last one is pronunciation. So what is the examiner looking for pronunciation? Well, the first one, of course, is word pronunciation. Are you pronouncing those words correctly? If you're not sure about that, you can go online There are free dictionaries online so that you can listen to the pronunciation of the word. So check that and make sure your words are correct. Another thing are individual sounds. So for example, sh, s, ch. Are you pronouncing these sounds correctly? And again, you can find practice online for that. And one other thing for pronunciation is intonation. Intonation is if your voice is going up and down, or if you are speaking like this. If you're speaking very flat, this is not good for your band score. You need to learn to use intonation in your voice. We often use intonation to make something more interesting or to show when something is important. So you can practice that at home and try to improve it. Now, the last thing, once you have got your topics and your ideas, you've got your vocabulary for the topic, you have your questions and you record them, you listen, you check your answer. Don't forget you can write down the answer to check what you say. Write down the words you're using. Check your fluency, vocabulary, grammar and pronunciation. And then, after that, practice. Practice and practice. Find your weakness. Get rid of your weakness. Improve your strengths. And you can practice and record again. Don't forget to keep recording your voice. Keep recording your answers. Get used to that. I know it can feel uncomfortable to sit in a room alone and record, but really it's good practice. You need to do it. Right, well, that's all for this lesson. I really hope that you practice this at home. Honestly, the more you practice, the better your IELTS will be, particularly if you check your answers correctly. Well, keep practicing. Good luck, and I'll see you in another IELTS lesson.